If you've been a Nintendo fan within the past few years, you're likely aware of Nintendo Directs, Nintendo's one-stop shop for all Nintendo news. We live in an age where people feel entitled to these presentations and complain when they're not good. But these people don't realize just how lucky we are to have the Directs we do today. It's time to take a trip down memory lane, back to where it all began. In October 2011, the first Nintendo Direct was released. Of course, Nintendo had been a huge company for decades before this point, so surely they already had some sort of way to get info about their games out into the open. Well, yeah, of course. Nintendo was a big player at pretty much every E3, but who says that game reveals had to be restricted to that time? Besides, at this point, E3 wasn't the easiest for an average consumer to enjoy. Not many people want to sit through a giant press conference just to get to the good stuff. As we now know, Nintendo Directs would go on to become a brilliant solution to this problem. Well, if Nintendo Directs are so acclaimed today, shall we take a look at the very first one?
Hi, I'm Reggie from Nintendo of America, and this marks a new endeavor for Nintendo. Direct video news feeds designed just for you. For this first installment, we've got some important news if you're an owner of Nintendo 3DS or just thinking of becoming one. And really, if you're neither one yet, what's wrong with you?
Whether you like these old Directs or not, you have to admit, Reggie is such a cool dude. What's wrong with you would go on to become one of his most famous lines, along with
"My body is ready."
And
"My name is Reggie, I'm about kicking ass, I'm about taking names, and we're about making games."
For those unaware, Reggie Fils-Aimé was the president of Nintendo of America from 2006 to 2019, and the kickin' ass line was actually our real first introduction to him. This first Direct and many others in the early days are just Reggie having a conversation with us about upcoming Nintendo stuff, no matter how mundane it may have been. I mean, this Direct is basically just go watch Glee on Hulu Plus, you can take videos on your 3DS now, go watch this Shrek music video, and download Pushmo off the eShop. I mean, to be fair, Pushmo is actually a pretty good game series actually, but to think that Nintendo Direct started with a Shrek music video for Thriller, how times change. There's a Skyward Sword trailer at the end, but man, this Direct substance was really just minor things that only a core subset of people would really care about. Let's see how this early era evolves. Reggie's back again in February, but this time we get to see Bill Trinen. You'll see him a lot in the early Directs. He's a part of the Nintendo Treehouse, which you probably remember from E3. After Nintendo's presentations, they continue to livestream and demo some of the games shown off. We've also seen Bill be a translator at many points, but we won't be seeing that today. Nintendo eShop was brand new, so they were pushing it down our throats at this point. Bill goes on to have interviews with various people about games they're working on, like Kid Icarus Uprising or Mario Tennis Open. And that's about it. You starting to get the picture? Early Directs were very different than what we have today. Hell, they even had pre-E3 Directs, which sounds super weird. In this one, Iwata basically just talks about the Wii U hardware, no games or anything. And the rest of the Directs of this early era just show us more of Reggie talking to us on his own about various games or interviewing people about games. However, as we venture into 2013, we enter an era that I think many people probably still look back on fondly. Satoru Iwata was the fourth president of Nintendo, starting in 2002. And to clarify, that's Nintendo as a whole, not Nintendo of America, where Reggie was president. In the years leading up to his death, if you were watching a Direct, you could expect Iwata to be the friendly face greeting you. He had done something not many CEOs did. He was making a personal connection with his company's fans. He put himself in the forefront of the media regarding Nintendo, and he was a man who genuinely cared about what the fans were interested in. Just like Reggie, he would go on to spawn many memes as well. This era was something to behold. We had Reggie and Iwata, two guys who Nintendo fans could come to know and love, handling the public view of Nintendo. In 2013, Iwata introduced us to the Year of Luigi, a year where many games centered around Luigi would be releasing. Now, I've been speaking pretty highly of Iwata, I mean, how can I not? He was quite the charming man. But it's not like these Directs were perfect or anything. They were still pretty similar to the Reggie Directs from a few years prior. Iwata would handle the show for a bit before passing it on to several other people to talk about various other games in depth. I mean, sure, it gets the news across, but when we enter the modern era of Nintendo Directs, we'll start to see how this could be improved upon. I've talked a lot about Iwata because he was such an amazing man, but Reggie's still here too.
Bill.
Hello?
Get your body ready.
Reggie?
We need to get a move on with this Nintendo Direct.
But this is an elevator.
Yes, I have that power. You cannot escape me, Bill. Anyway, I'll get things started. See you later.
But Reggie, I'm kicking off the show. Reggie? Reggie?
I heard nothing.
Reggie!
Hi, everyone. Reggie here at the Nintendo of America headquarters in Redmond, Washington.
Something about listening to Reggie talk to us about games or hardware is just really fun. This man just has such a friendly presence as he talks about his personal connections with Zelda or Animal Crossing before handing it over to the admittedly less interesting people who have the real news. Of course, at this point, Smash 4 was upcoming, so that meant that Smash reveals were becoming a big thing. This was the beginning of using Smash characters as an intro or a stinger for directs, which is something everyone would come to love and expect. You know, it's really nice to look back at these directs, but as someone from the future, it just feels so slow-paced, you know? We'll talk more about that later when we discuss what the existence of directs means for big events like E3 or Summer Game Fest. My favorite part about directs back then was the humor. Obviously, that's not what I'm looking for today, but back then, Nintendo liked to have some fun with these showcases.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
Nintendo 62, Nintendo 63, Nintendo 64. My puppet body is ready.
Oh yeah, this is probably a good time to talk about the fact that around this point, Nintendo stopped doing live press conferences during E3. Instead, they started doing pre-recorded events like this that were basically Nintendo Directs, except with Adult Swim animation and Muppets, for some reason. Okay. E3 2015 was actually the first E3 that I ever watched, so seeing Reggie, Iwata, and Miyamoto transform into the Star Fox crew is really nostalgic for me. As I'm sure you're aware, in 2015, not long after the E3 presentation I just talked about, Satoru Iwata passed away. Complications with a tumor in his bile duct resulted in his death on July 11th. I wasn't aware of how large his presence was at the time, but I still knew how unfortunate this was. He was a bright man with a vision, a Japanese man who learned English and used it to become one of the faces of Nintendo in America. A man who made his presence known in a way most executives never would. Just like that, one of the biggest faces in gaming was gone. Now, things proceeded the way they always had with Directs from then on. The format was still more or less the same, and it's truly a shame that I don't have much more to say about them. I mean, that's just the byproduct of the time period that Directs became prominent in, the Wii U era. The Wii U flopped, and there's only a handful of games that I can say are really great. Like, if you haven't played it, play Nintendo Land. People tend to overlook this game when it's a seriously great tech demo for the system, like Wii Sports was for the Wii. They really should have made a new Nintendo Land for the Switch instead of whatever 1-2 Switch was. And supposedly Nintendo's just sitting on a 1-2 Switch sequel and they don't know what to do with it, so... How about you just throw it into a dumpster fire? Yep, that'll do. Granted, the 3DS was pretty great, but by this point there really wasn't much left for the 3DS. We would see some pretty good games in its last few years, like Fire Emblem Echoes and Miitopia, Pokemon Sun and Moon, but these games were bound to be overshadowed by the hybrid console looming in the distance. Also, can I just say that Nintendo has no clue what they're talking about? The DS released, and they claimed it would become a third pillar for Nintendo, and that the Game Boy Advance would still stay prominent. Then why the hell did you put a Game Boy Advance slot on the DS? Then they released a Switch, but kept pushing the 3DS for a good few years when these games had absolutely no hope, and when there was a console that could be played at home and on the go. You know what, whatever. You probably saw the title for the segment, and you don't think anything is too weird so far, right? Well, I said that the Direct stayed mostly normal. Mostly. I'll just let the videos do the talking for me.
Team, we're going to be powering through some meetings all day today, but to keep us going, I got us some snacks. Bill! 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 Bill!
Without that 3DS and without Bill, I don't know how we're going to announce those 2017 games.
What are we going to do? Bill? What on earth? It is him. Bill! Bill! Where have you been?
The island. It spoke to me. Revealed secrets of the universe. The 3DS lineup. There's so much hope.
Bill, this beard. You didn't have this a few hours ago.
Hours? It's been years, man!
We finally made it to the pinnacle of Nintendo Directs. This begins the age where I think Directs have been the most masterfully crafted showcases of upcoming games that the internet has ever seen, and that's something that people truly take for granted. Yoshiaki Koizumi is basically the new figurehead of Directs. You've seen him a lot in the past 5 years, and you'll probably continue to see him. Holy crap, this is efficiency. Nintendo Direct headlines take us through a ton of announcements in a very quick and snappy fashion. It tells us everything we need to know in a concise manner without trailing off for too long. No lengthy developer interviews, no weird skits. Just everything we want. They've evolved a bit over time. In their first iteration, you can see the list of what's coming up without spoiling it too much. The progression is just so amazing, I can't even explain how much it means to me. Sure, some games do get a bit longer to shine and to be explained in depth, but that's because they're some of Nintendo's heavy hitters for the year. In this Direct, it's ARMS and Splatoon 2. In the next one, it's Xenoblade 2, Octopath Traveler, and Mario Odyssey. I think Nintendo obviously understands how well this new format works since they've kept it up ever since 2017. For the most part, these aren't just random announcements either. There's something in every Direct that somebody can look forward to. You want to play Minecraft on 3DS? Here you go. Want to play Dark Souls on Switch? No problem. Something we'll see a lot in the Switch era Directs is Nintendo embracing third-party developers. If you go through these Directs, you'll notice that a good chunk of announcements are third-party games, and a lot of the time, somewhat older ones at that. And yet, we still get so hyped for these games on Switch, and rightfully so. Games that you'd never think would be portable are suddenly portable. Games like The Witcher 3, Undertale, Crash Bandicoot, and so on can all be on Switch. If the hardware itself was just a little more powerful, this thing would genuinely be the greatest console for all things gaming. Besides Persona. As we move into 2018, we see them change the layout a little bit. This transition is just so smooth, I don't care what anyone says. This way, we still get the concept of headlines, but we're not looking forward to see what's coming up, and I like that. In March 2018, we see some news on Mario Tennis Aces, Splatoon 2 DLC, and Smash Ultimate is announced. Look, this is just godly. We go straight from Splatoon 2 into one last thing that also looks like Splatoon, leaving us clueless before we see the Smash logo. 4 years later, and this is still an amazing reveal trailer. At E3, the heavy hitter is more news on Smash Ultimate, revealing that all previous characters are returning for the first time, as well as a new addition of Ridley after years of waiting for it. September gives us the announcements of Luigi's Mansion 3, the NES Online app, more info on Yoshi's Crafted World, a ton of Final Fantasy games coming to Switch, Isabelle for Smash, and a new Animal Crossing. February 2019 shows us Super Mario Maker 2, Dragon Quest XI-S, Tsum Tsum? Okay then. A huge spotlight on Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Tetris 99, Deltarune, Astral Chain, and Link's Awakening Remake. E3 brings us multiple Smash fighters, Hero and Banjo-Kazooie, as well as the announcement of Breath of the Wild 2, No More Heroes 3, more Fire Emblem stuff, more Animal Crossing, and wait, Doug Bowser exists? Okay, so after Reggie retired, Doug Bowser is the guy they got to fill his role. I don't have anything against him. He seems like an alright dude, and the bit at the beginning with him and the other Bowser is kinda cute, but he just doesn't have the same presence as Reggie. We saw Reggie a lot when he was president, not of America, but of Nintendo of America. He was in directs giving us news, he was kicking ass at press conferences, and so on. Doug Bowser? We barely see the dude. He doesn't make the same effort as Reggie and Iwata did to connect with the fans. And you know what? That's fair. What those two did was pretty unique, all things considered. Expecting every CEO to do the same thing is bizarre. I get that. It's just easy to notice the gap left by those two amazing men. Anyway, back to the directs. September showed Overwatch for the Switch, the announcement of Terry for Smash, and Fighters Pass 2, the SNES Online app, and the reveal of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Also, this. The September Direct was the last one of the year, and you probably noticed how I made sure to cover all the big announcements that happened in these New Era Directs. That was very intentional, and will be important for my last major point of the video, so stay tuned for that. "2020 was a bad time for all of us. People lost their jobs, businesses weren't able to work in the same capacity as before, and of course, many people lost their lives. That being said, I can't blame Nintendo for how this year turned out. There wasn't a single regular Direct throughout the entire year, and that's okay. There was a Direct Mini that showed us more on Xenoblade, Bravely Default 2, and Pokemon DLC, but that was really the last thing that resembled a major Direct. The rest of the year still had some Smash announcements, with Sakurai showing off the DLC characters from his home, those being Byleth, Min Min, Steve, and Sephiroth. There was also a Mario Center Direct that revealed 3D All-Stars, Mario Kart Live, and Bowser's Fury. But the year was filled with something that most Nintendo fans probably don't want to remember: partner showcases. These are basically just short directs that only had third-party stuff shown off, a lot of which just wasn't very interesting, honestly. The only one I really cared about was the first one in July, since it had Shin Megami Tensei 3 and Shin Megami Tensei 5. But it also had John Cena in whatever this is. These showcases would show some interesting stuff like Kingdom Hearts Melody and Memory, Monster Hunter Rise, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. But overall, most people didn't find much of interest within these presentations. Thankfully, there was a beacon of hope on the horizon. After 17 months without a full-fledged Nintendo Direct, the world was graced with its return on February 17th, and it was greater than ever.
The DC superhero girls are here to save the day.
Okay, maybe not. Anyway, there were plenty of solid announcements in here to satisfy the people after so long. Pyra and Mythra were revealed for Smash Bros, Fall Guys was coming to Switch months too late, Mario Golf Super Rush was announced, Miitopia was getting released for Switch, Project Triangle Strategy, a successor to Octopath Traveler, was announced, an HD remaster of Skyward Sword was announced, and finally Splatoon 3. I saw some people complaining about the filler when this Direct was first released, and to that I say, did you forget how Directs work? Sure, these days there's plenty of big announcements to be had in Directs, but for every good announcement, there's a few stinkers as well. At E3, Nintendo quite literally saved the entire show of their Direct, but we'll talk more about that at the end. Kazuya from Tekken was revealed for Smash Bros, who I mistakenly called Heihachi. Heihachi? Guardians of the Galaxy was coming to Switch. Okay, that's cool, this game looks promising. Oh, cloud version. God damn it, Nintendo. Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania was revealed after being leaked a few days prior, containing levels from the first few games in the series, but everyone thought this was going to be Donkey Kong for some reason. Mario Party Superstars was revealed, a back-to-formula Mario Party game that contains boards from the first 3 games on the Nintendo 64. After an update on Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Dread was announced, and holy shit, that game was so good. Like, if you have a Switch and literally nothing else, go play Super Metroid on Nintendo Switch Online, because that's one of my favorite games of all time, and then go play Metroid Dread, because it is such a great evolution of the series as a whole. I love Mercury's theme. WarioWare Get It Together was announced, featuring co-op where you can play as some of the side characters. Shin Megami Tensei 5 exists still, and almost all of the Danganronpa games were coming to Switch. Advance Wars 1 and 2 were getting a remake, and after so long, we finally got to see Breath of the Wild 2 again. Look, I don't care who you are, you can't deny how amazing that Direct was for Nintendo fans. September greeted us with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, Chocobo GP, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo 64 games on Nintendo Switch Online, Deltarune Chapter 2, Game Boy Advance Castlevania games, Bayonetta 3 after so many years, and Chris Pratt as Mario? Okay, as of right now, the most recent Direct was in February 2022, where we saw Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, Mario Strikers Battle League, more on Splatoon 3 and Advance Wars, Chrono Cross, Mouthful Mode, Klonoa, Portal, Nintendo Switch Sports, which I talk about in my video over the history of Mii's, check that out, Earthbound on Nintendo Switch Online, DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Alright, for me personally, that was one of the most amazing Directs. Plenty of stuff to be interested in there. I'm writing this video in the middle of June, and there's no Direct yet, but I get the feeling we'll be seeing one by the end of the month, unless it's already out by the time this video goes up, in which case you would know better than me. Now, obviously, I'm very passionate about Directs, or the modern ones anyway. I enjoy most of the things announced, even if they don't particularly interest me. You know why? My favorite part about Directs is getting to see other people react to them. When I say there's something for everyone in these showcases, I mean that. Even if I have no interest in Chrono Cross, I know there's people out there who love it, and so I'm excited for them. I don't care much for Splatoon, but I know people will be hyped about new features shown for Splatoon 3, so I can't wait to see how those people react to what makes them happy, rather than what makes me happy. As a testament to this, let's have a look at some of my favorite reactions to Direct announcements over the years.
Oh my god! Snake! Oh my fucking god! Everyone! Oh my god! Ah! No, we gotta break this, go!
What? Advance.
Ah! Ah! No!
Please, Reggie, let's see the ballot. Fuck you. No. No. What the fuck? What the fuck? Hang on. Chill the fuck out, Sakurai! Oh my god! No fucking way! No fucking way! Dude! Dude! How the shit is this real? How does this shit even happen? He wasn't even on a Nintendo game. Go, let's go! Normies are oh my god! Yes! 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 This is the character I wanted!
Alright, so yeah, most of those were from Smash announcements, but that really just goes to show how big of a deal it was. When Smash was getting DLC, that's the one thing that everyone, and I mean everyone, would talk about going into a Direct. Smash season is insane, man. People are constantly trying to predict who's gonna get in, and everyone has somebody they really want in. It's not that Directs feel empty without Smash or anything, but when it's around, it's a big deal. And growing up, I always wanted to go to E3. I mean, it just seems so cool. This was the place where all of the biggest names in gaming gathered to show what they had coming up. And then if you're actually there, you have all these demos to play in the show floor. Except not really, because you'll have to wait in a line for a few decades. But as time goes on, I feel that E3 is becoming less and less important. I mean, in recent years, PlayStation hasn't been a part of it at all. And if last year's E3 was any indication, we probably shouldn't hold the event if most of the involved companies don't have that much to show off. If you ask me, the concept of a Nintendo Direct inherently makes E3 less important, at least for Nintendo. Whenever people predict or hope for something huge in a Direct, someone will be quick to respond with not happening, wait until E3. But that's not a valid argument anymore. The reason I talked at length about the highlights of modern Directs is because many of the announcements in those Directs were Nintendo's big games for that year. If you ask me, E3 probably isn't that big of a deal for Nintendo anymore, and they just see it as a convenient place to slide in another Direct for the year. Honestly, some of Nintendo's February and September Directs have been crazier than some of their E3 Directs, which just proves my point. Nintendo follows a pretty clear pattern with their Directs. They have 3 throughout the year. One in the first quarter, one in the second, and one in the third. This is usually February, June, and September, although I'm never quick to assume that a Direct is coming in February since they've done it in March and April as well. Nintendo Directs are a quick and efficient way to get information about upcoming games to consumers in a fashion that they can easily understand. In the past, E3 seemed like this magical event where dreams come true, but now, for Nintendo, it's no different than any of their other directs. I hope other companies can start to follow this formula in the future. There's no need to do a presentation if you have nothing to show, looking at you, Sonic Central. But when E3 does happen, these companies feel obligated to participate since it's arguably the biggest gaming event of the year. People complained about Summer Game Fest, and I agree, for a lot of people there wasn't a whole lot to chew on. But that has absolutely nothing to do with Jeff Keighley. He is entirely capable of running a show, but he can only put on a good show if valuable developers have something they're willing to show. In this case, the big three, Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation, all withheld stuff to presumably hold for their own events. Not that Nintendo was even involved in Summer Game Fest to begin with. Xbox just had their event, a Direct is rumored for June 29th, and I'm sure PlayStation has a big showcase coming soon just like every year. I feel kinda bad for Jeff Keighley because he clearly knew what kind of expectations people were holding, leading him to warn us to lower our expectations. And then, the biggest announcement of his entire show got leaked beforehand. I think Jeff is a great person, and I have no problems with him, but something that both him and the ESA need to understand going forward is that we don't need huge events like this anymore. If developers have a lot of stuff they want to show, they can easily do it on their own terms. And if you just want to go to a convention, go to PAX. I mean, PAX is held multiple times a year in multiple places, and it'll be a very similar situation without the expectation of big gaming announcements. So yeah, I really want to go to PAX anyway. In Nintendo's case, they'll get the exact same amount of viewers, whether they put out a Direct under E3 or they announce one for some random date a day beforehand. And that's just the kind of influence these companies have on their own. It was fun while it lasted, but E3 doesn't need to go on any longer, and Nintendo Direct is just the proof you need.